All right, everybody, welcome into another episode of the Meme Factory podcast. As always, this is a test stream, so nothing we do here can be taken seriously. We're still just trying to figure out the kinks here. Tonight with us, we've got Alex Gladstein, Chief Strategy Officer over at the Human Rights Foundation and a wonderful Bitcoin advocate. For those who don't know Alex and his work, Alex, why don't you go ahead and give us an idea of who you are while you're drinking your drink.
Yeah, I'm, let's say, a freedom fighter with a career in more broad freedom advocacy. I came into Bitcoin after doing a decade of work at the Human Rights Foundation, which is a charity doing fun things like smuggling flash drives into North Korea and forbidden ebooks into Cuba, and teaching activists how to protect themselves on the internet. Getting into a lot of trouble with a lot of fun people around the world who are considered very dangerous by their governments. I will never forget a moment at an event we did maybe 10 years ago where one of my colleagues was with about 10 of these dissidents, and we were in front of all these media from around the world, and we were at a press conference we were organizing, and he said something like, "All right, I want you to stand up if you're considered a terrorist by your government." And they all stood up, right? So like we're dealing with people who are, one man's terrorist is another one's freedom fighter, and we have that freedom fighter perspective. So it's been a lot of fun to help juice up and support that movement. And then eventually, I got reluctantly sort of dragged into Bitcoin. Some Ukrainian activists actually in 2013 were like, "Hey, like, I think we can use this thing to help us out." And I was kind of like, "You're crazy. No, I'm not interested in hearing about what you're having to say." And then luckily, one of our donors was not so, he was very persistent. He was like, "No, I want to donate to you guys in Bitcoin in 2014. So we at least had to learn how to download a wallet and accept Bitcoin, which was good. Then we completely forgot about it, which was even better. For several years. And then, no, I just kept remaining a little skeptical. I even went to dinner with Gladstein in 2016. A friend of mine introduced us, and it's funny because I just saw Gladstein the other day, and he was reminding me of the fact that I was like, kind of not going to make it at the time, still in 26, like when we had this dinner. But hey, eventually I caved. We started doing events in the spring of 2017 with activists and Bitcoin people, and it's been downhill ever since in terms of exploring the very base relationship between money and freedom. So it's been a lot of fun.
It's the first time I think I've heard you say that you've gotten in trouble from some nasty characters. I know you work in and around places where nasty characters exist. Give me a story one time you didn't think you were going to make it out.
No, I've always been I've always felt decently safe. But in 2013, we were doing basically not a publicity stunt because it was going to have real impact. But we were taking a payload of outside information and floating it into North Korea from South Korea. And we had planned to do it during the daytime. After this incident, we never did it like announced again. We did it at night and nobody knew, and it was great. But you wait until the wind is blowing a particular direction, and you can like just let go of a balloon essentially, and it floats into North Korea, and then you have this little thing of acid, and it burns through the little container, and then it opens the bag and it dumps all the stuff everywhere. So we had planned to do this launch, and the North Korean Defense Ministry sent out a press release saying they were going to blow us up. So that was really intense. And I remember my family at the time was like, no, please don't go to this site that they promised they would. And of course the North Korean government uses absurd, we're going to blow you to smithereens and set our dogs on you and stuff like that. They
Was it a
going
credible
over
threat?
the top. I mean, it was literally a press release from a foreign government saying it was going to blow us up. So, I mean, I knew it was bluster and they didn't do it, but the South Korean police stopped us from doing it, which led to a whole bunch of us asking them if, are you North Korea or are they North Korea? Like, what, are we allowed to do this here or what's going on? So there was a lot of that going on. My colleague, whose name is his nickname is Fireball. His name is Park Sang-hak. He, an incredible North Korean defector who is very, if you can imagine, very loud and outspoken. His father was sort of a secret agent for the North Koreans and ended up stealing a supercomputer from Japan in the 80s, which is insane. And he was part of the elite in North Korea, actually. But one day they got this letter from their dad being like, you got to get out. You got to get out. And of course, you look at the letter and you're probably like, what is he talking about? Because they're all brainwashed, so they don't know. But eventually he kept sending letters and the family was like, all right, we're actually going to go. So they got out. And once they got to South Korea, they realized they had been lied to and all this stuff. And this dude's mission is to like just send the info back to the people he left behind. It's really a noble mission. But he's very like intense about doing it. But it was an honor to work with him. But at the end of the day, he got like shoved into a cop car and they took him away. So we were not able to do the launch. We had to do it later. But I remember that being like a pretty sketchy situation, and always there doing that stuff. I mean, they have an expression saying that there's just as many. It probably sounds more smart in Korean, but they basically say there's just as many North Korean agents in South Korea as there are telephone poles. That's like a phrase they have. So yeah, definitely some weird stuff in the Korean Peninsula. Definitely some weird things in other countries. I remember one time I went to visit the opposition leader of Malaysia, and we went to his office. And me being this sort of naive American, I think this was 2010, and I'm sitting there, and we're in the Parliament building, and we're meeting, and he's got like the TV really loud, and I'm like, why do you have this television so loud? And he looks at me and he's like, oh, they're listening to us. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty crazy. I like just didn't, I just didn't think about, I was so naive, I just didn't realize that that's like how it is in most of these countries. Right. So yeah, obviously still here, one piece. I feel like the Bitcoin stuff's going to get me in the most trouble eventually for sure. But I'm ready for it.
All right. Well, I know you do a lot of fighting against dictators, but there's one dictatorial thing that we'll have to make you do while you're here, and that is how we earn money as a podcast. So if you have access to your Twitter DMs,
okay,
I just sent you the ad copy that our sponsors sent us.
Mm-hmm.
The only way we are able to attract sponsors is by telling them that our guests will actually read the ad, because none of us or anybody.
Important. Yeah.
So yeah, if you could, at your convenience, go through that ad copy, and it's lighter than the original company wanted to make it, but
okay.
We softened this one up for you, Alex.
Soften this up for you.
Man, must be desperate times for you guys. I'm sorry to hear this, but I will read the ad read. Are you bored of being free? Does the idea of self-sovereignty make you sweat? Are you starting to see privacy more as a human plight than a human right? Autonomy, a disorder? Volition, a violation? And are you starting to think that Anne Frank, Viktor Frankl, and Alexander Solzhenitsyn were really just tinfoil-hatted conspiracy theorists? Well, think no more. Introducing the final solution to your woes, Panoptchip, a revolutionary new technology innovation that pushes your thoughts and decision-making to the cloud. By submitting full compliance and control, you'll be able to live your life in a whole new way anytime and anywhere we say so. Unsure about which friends to visit, wondering what to eat, when to shower, how long to run your AC, leave all those decisions and more to us. With Panoptchip, your body becomes our playground. How much fun does that sound? That's right. Your world is our oyster when you sign up today. We'll literally be right there, right beside you, guiding and instructing you for the rest of your life. If you hurry up, you can use the promo code Klaus. That's KLAUS for free shipping. So hope you guys all get the Panoptchip.
Hey!
Thank you.
Yeah,
We can have another show.
and that's
Okay, good.
That's for free shipping outside of West Taiwan.
Is that a new division of Meta? That's like that one of their new. products are rolling out. The Meta Panopta chip.
Kinda, yeah.
Absolutely.
Facebook. This one's from
front run.
WorldCoin or whatever that thing was.
No, that's an amateur thing. This is going to be like an actual Meta division and department that's going to have a massive building out in the middle of nowhere where people are toiling away all day.
So
That's
what,
right.
what
on it.
because we just mentioned it, like what's your first thoughts on the announcement Facebook did, Zuckerberg, about the whole Meta thing?
I mean, have you guys read this book? This book's amazing. The Circle by Dave Eggers. Have you read it? It's fucking great. I mean, Meta is the fucking circle. I mean, that's just like what it is. And I loved this book because I feel like it was written maybe. I've heard the movie is terrible, so I would not recommend that. But the book is awesome, and I think it was written like 10 years ago. It wasn't like anywhere close to where we are today with social media. But the author, who's great by the way, Dave Eggers, he just nailed it, like in terms of what social media companies would become, and it's almost like a comic book watching Meta, really, like what it's like the WorldCoin thing. It's like almost too absurd to be true. So I think Meta's kind of like the Circle. They're gonna have.
I'm getting it right now.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff, man. It's a really good book. It'll really you'll be like, oh, this actually happened, basically. But I think that it's to the script that we would have all joked about. We're just watching it happen, and yeah, we're trying to build like the anti Meta. I think that we have some allies, out there. I think what Dorsey's doing is great. I did an interview with somebody earlier today who's doing a story on Dorsey, and I was pointing out how crazy it is that, like think about it. If he was like all these other people, we'd be using Dorsey coin, like in Twitter for tips, and we'd be fucking using like going to Cash App. It'd be like, here's your Dorsey coin balance, like
tweet coin.
No, he's and putting the whole Twitter stuff aside, and whether whatever it is, the blue sky, whatever. I'm not sure if that'll work out. Who knows? But the fact that he's just really pushing the open source stuff is refreshing, and we need it because everybody else is pushing the meta nonsense. So
very based.
Yeah, no, I mean, dude, he tweeted what the fuck happened in 1971.com, which is crazy. And we have other allies too, which was really crazy to me was when I was at the Texas Blockchain Summit a few weeks ago in Austin with all these amazing people down there. I was on a panel with Warren Davidson, and they're going to put the video out soon. It was crazy because I'm on this panel and there's a spook on the panel from Boeing, and he's like going on about how we're still in the gold standard and stuff. And Warren and I were like what, like, what is going on? And Warren's just like, hey, there's just this huge room, by the way. Like Jimmy Song had just interviewed Ted Cruz. It was like, there's probably 1,000 people in this room. It's massive. And Warren Davidson's like, hey, I think you all should check out WTF happened in 1971.com. I just thought it was crazy to hear an American congressman tell the public to go to this website. I thought that was amazing. So we do have allies. I just was in DC on Monday with CJ Wilson and with Senator Lummis. I spoke to maybe 70 staffers on Capitol Hill about Bitcoin and financial inclusion. So we have allies in different places, and we need them because it's a big fight,
What are those conversations like when you're going to DC and you're talking to, these people? What are they asking you questions? Are you kind of providing information?
DC's a really strange place for me. I try not to spend much time there. I was delighted to go at the invitation of Senator Lummis, but generally speaking, I try to avoid lobbying. That's not really what I'm trying to do. I want to spend my time and effort helping build and helping activists directly. I'm not really, I go to DC and I feel like I don't know what I'm doing there. I'm like, I'm sitting here in this like seat of power. Like, this is the Senate buildings are really like, they're designed to be imposing. And it's like the Capitol's this huge thing. And you got the CIA and FBI and all this stuff there. All the alphabet soup organizations. And you're in the seat of power of this government that has completely run the world since the end of World War II. And you're sitting there and you're like, I'm in these rooms and it's like all these old library type rooms, and you're just kind of like, it's really weird that I'm here to talk about something that's going to help like erode the power of this institution. It's of this thing, it's a strange feeling being in DC talking about Bitcoin. And very few people do. I will note that I believe that there's tons of crypto lobbyists in Bitcoin, tons of crypto lobbyists in DC, tons. They're there to convince the government that their token's not an unregistered security, and that that they basically should not be, that their stable coins should not be, be forced to comply with banking law. Like that's like what they pay these lobbyists to do.
How's that fight going for them?
Oh, there's legions of crypto lobbyists, but like, dude, I don't think there's very many Bitcoin lobbyists. So, me and CJ were there probably as kind of rarer people coming to talk about Bitcoin specifically. But that was cool. I don't know. I'm down to go back, but God, it would be tough for that to be your job. I prefer to let Bitcoin do its thing. It'll do its thing organically. It'll convince a senator here or a congressman there. It'll ensnare somebody else. Like it'll spread, and it'll get there. I'm not sure about this idea of like trying to push legal tender or nation state adoption. I always feel uneasy about that. I feel like Bitcoin will do its thing. Let's just work on getting people involved. Let's work on getting the public, up to speed. I'm not really sure about informing the government. Happy that some of them are pro Bitcoin, certainly, but no need to rush the narrative on it. Like, I have a friend who works at State, and I sat down with him, and they're just State Department. Yeah, Department of State. They're like clueless. They don't know that they're clueless. So maybe it's fine that they're clueless. Maybe it's okay that they're clueless during Bitcoin's early adoption cycle. Maybe that's better that way. Maybe I shouldn't be pointing out what's going to happen over the next
meaning
decade.
that when they figure it out or take notice, it's going to be too big to like do anything about it.
Yeah, I just also like we could use more time to build and less interference from the government. Like the next 24 months are going to be really pivotal to build stuff with Bitcoin. Like the amount of stuff that's happening right now is really exciting.
Why 24 months?
I just feel like once you get a year or two after Taproot deploys, we're going to have some really fun stuff happening. There's a lot of work in privacy, especially, that I think is happening in the next 18 to 24 months, around wallet usability, around Lightning privacy, around coin swaps and coin joins, and all these things becoming more usable on wallets.
Anything
so I
that
think
you're excited about that you can share?
I mean, you're watching it happen. I mean, 8 months ago, very few people talked about offers. I think offers are now a thing that people are like really excited about the idea of just generating a QR to collect Lightning without having to share your public key. I think that's really exciting. I think that there's people in earnest actually thinking about how to do, and I know we don't like the word stablecoin, but like how to do basically like a dollar denominated balance, but in native Bitcoin, like through a smart contract. I think that's really powerful for emerging markets. And there's actually people starting to talk about that through contract for difference. I think that you're going to start seeing more like behind the scenes stuff in wallets where it's like, when you open a Lightning channel, there'll be like like by default coin swap type stuff. You're seeing, we supported Chaincase, but also Sparrow, and a lot of these wallets are starting to incorporate CoinJoin, which is really cool. That's what we want to see. You want to see it more elegantly done, obviously. I mean, Join Market's that one end of that spectrum, but you really want to have like a crisp iOS CoinJoin experience, where it kind of does everything for you. That's where we want to get to. And I think there's going to be like it's fine if the government doesn't know what any of this stuff is. Like, let us build it, and then we can have the fight. We'll be better off in 2 years to have the fight, is what I'm saying. Does that make sense? Like, yeah, I'd rather have
I think in 2 years you're going to be saying the same thing.
Sure, but we'll be more positioned.
Yeah.
Like obviously, I mean, think about SegWit and like what it enabled. Like, it's just crazy to even think about the last 4 or 5 years.
We've got a lot of noobs that watch this channel. Tell them what it enabled. What are you so excited about?
Well, I just think that But what about what SegWit enabled, or what about what tapped? I
Segwit.
mean, so we were basically living in a world where we had no Lightning Network. It didn't exist, and it was really fundamentally going to be essentially not possible without SegWit. And if you think about what SegWit has enabled through just looking at the Lightning Network, like forget like transaction efficiency or any of that stuff. It's extraordinary. I mean, Bitcoin always would have succeeded, I think, at being kind of a reserve asset, regardless. But Lightning really makes it digital cash. Like your ability to spend it instantly and to really get that, as Mahlers talks about, the monetary network piece is something that people couldn't even conceive of like 5 years ago. Like this idea that you'd have like kind of like Bitcoin banks or custodial organizations, but then like connected on this open Lightning network was yeah, I mean, you go back, you listen to talks, and people were predicting cool stuff on Lightning, but it was more like they were like, oh, we're gonna have streaming money, right? Which we have now, which is cool, but the not as cool as like the fact that freaking Twitter is like plugging into the Lightning network, like that's crazy. So,
Awesome.
So SegWit, birthed tons of stuff that we couldn't have predicted, and I know that we want to be honest and we focus on vulnerabilities of Lightning, but let's be clear, it's also, I mean, not on the chain. So there's just like,
this is the show where you can do your moonshots. You don't need to be
you don't need to be
super honest about
but like meaning like you look at someone like Chris Belcher, and he's talking about how like, I mean, this is massive privacy upgrade just from the sense of like, you can't do chain analysis. Like there's other ways to like exploit Lightning, sure, but they're harder and more time consuming. So the very fact that we have just more and more and more transactions not on the chain is also super, super cool. So no one today we don't know what's going to be being built in 3-4 years in Bitcoin, because like it's impossible to predict the future is what we've learned.
Are you running a Lightning node?
I have an Umbrel set up, which is pretty tight. I am a big fan of their company. We helped support a bounty to help bring Join Market to Umbrel, so that would be pretty tight. Pretty excited about that. And I've been messing around with a bunch of the apps. I like Sphinx a lot. I think that's kind of cool. I think it's early, but I think like what they're doing is cool. I like Breeze. But for me, the coolest thing by far was going to El Zante and just using Lightning as it's meant to be used in the wild as cash.
I saw you at that coffee shop. That was cool.
I mean, look, love Sphinx, love the podcast stuff, love the donations, love the tips, but there's nothing that beats actually just like going for like a few days and just using Bitcoin as your money for everything. It's extraordinary because it's just so much better. Like it's just, not only is it faster and more elegant, but it feels better. Like paying for something in Bitcoin is like a big deal. Like,
there's a shift that happened this summer where
it's a psychological shift, Yeah,
there was like a shift that happened this summer where before we had that run up in fees, everybody was paying each other on chain, right? And then during the summer or like in that time frame, everybody switched to Lightning, and then afterwards doing an on-chain transaction was like really kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for me now, I feel like on-chain transactions are like Boomer or something. Like I don't know. Like I mean, but obviously they're cool still. Obviously cool, but it feels, it's like a bummer. Like for example, it's kind of a bummer when I can't use Lightning. Sometimes even in El Zante, there were still a couple merchants that like, for whatever reason, the Lightning wasn't working. So it's just like, okay. Or like a friend of mine will be like, oh, I set up my tips on Twitter, but I don't have Strike. So here's my, here's my address. And I'm just kind of like, what? This is kind of old tech, And I just
hard to send $5 that way.
Well, it's fine, but it's just like way cooler. Like when I have, for example, all these generous, awesome people on the internet, tipping me or whatever, $5 here, $1 there, or whatever, and I'm withdrawing that chunk into my own wallet. Just doing that on Lightning is crazy to me because even a year and a half ago, doing $100 on Lightning was like non-advisable, or at least like potentially sketchy. And yeah, I mean, look, withdrawing from Strike sometimes takes longer than like 2 seconds. Sometimes it's like 15 seconds or something, but it fucking works. It's like amazing. And the fee is always like nothing. So super, super cool to do that. And yeah, you can just start seeing that new kind of architecture of finance start to emerge. Things changing quite quickly. Yeah.
It was interesting. So many don't know, but RD was actually visiting me the other day. Everyone's jealous, I know.
Mm-hmm.
And RD is a master orange piller, and we went to this bar, and he orange pilled the bartender, who was an Englishman, and we were paying him right then and there on the Lightning Network. So it was pretty cool. Also, just a question, so when you go to a place like El Salvador, or even after you've left,
yeah,
what are the things that you're looking for in a country like El Salvador that other countries can replicate and kind of copy, or things that they can take away from El Salvador adopting a Bitcoin standard? Or any type of
question. Yeah,
things?
I mean, it gets weird, right? Because like for me, Bitcoin's voluntary. And I was debating this the other day yesterday, I guess we had the spaces on Bitcoin Magazine with a professor, a sound money guy, and
Steve Hanke? No,
a guy named William Luther. But there was another guy, Troy, a couple professors. One of them was very orange pilled though. And he was saying that we were talking about legal tender. And we were talking about fiat currency. And we were debating whether or not Bitcoin is fiat, right? And obviously for me, like, of course not. It's like the anti-fiat, right? But we were trying to unpack that. What does that actually mean, right? And one of the guys said something really interesting, and that's obviously we can all agree Bitcoin's not supply fiat. That's what makes it special. But it is demand fiat, whether we like it or not, in El Salvador, right? And if we are correct and Bitcoin does what we think it's going to do, it's going to be demand fiat pretty much everywhere. Meaning like governments are going to not just probably start allowing you to pay your taxes in it, but eventually they're going to basically force you, because they're not going to want their worthless credits anymore. They're going to want the coin, right? They're going to want the corn. So it will be demand fiat, like probably most places eventually, right? So I thought that was interesting to think about in the context of El Salvador. And you get this voluntary, peaceful, open source code, and then all of a sudden it starts to like grow into this second level of beast, which will be, used as a tool by governments to do different things. So I have mixed feelings about the way it's being rolled out, obviously in the capital and like at these corporations. I continue to think it's the Trojan horse thing of like, oh, well, now Starbucks is accepting Lightning in this country. Why can't it do it in a different country? And clearly they all sit down and they have chats and they're like, oh, this is easy and it's good for us. So I think it'll spread, and I think it's still on a whole great. But really the magic was in El Zante, in that community, because the people have like been materially and psychologically impacted by the idea of Bitcoin. Like, it just helps them think about long-term. It helps them save. It helps them be independent. It helps them be proud. It's really, really cool. So that to me was what I saw. And what I feel like my takeaway is that, Bitcoin's not this like magic thing you can sprinkle on a place and just make it use, but you have to have a community, right? And the community there's so strong. Like the folks at Bitcoin Beach and Hope House and stuff, like whatever, if Bitcoin failed tomorrow for whatever reason, they would keep doing what they're doing. They're there to keep building this community, right? So you need the community, and then the community, in the community's hands, Bitcoin is like a really powerful weapon, or rather, I guess, shield. I guess probably rather say, but yeah, the cool part is like there are a lot of amazing communities out there in the world, and they're all going to use Bitcoin. It's going to be great. So
sounds like you're more of a fan of how El Zante did it from the ground up versus just having a president mandate it down.
Yeah, but I'll acknowledge that the president mandating it is a inevitable outcome of the organic growth. Like this was going to happen. You were going to have nation state adoption at one point or another.
Do you think that the president would have mandated it if there wasn't an El Zante in the country? Like, I think I remember I heard you say, there's like in a lot of third world countries, and maybe, correct me if you didn't say this, but I think you said in a lot of third world countries, a lot of scammers and, MLMs that come around. So sometimes people can be weary of Bitcoin. And so, what do you see Bitcoin adoption kind of being, if anything? Do you think it's more going to be kind of like that grassroots swell from the bottom up, or more kind of like a downstream thing from the top?
I think it's gonna be both. I mean, there's different stories from different people. I tried to sort of tell it in the piece I wrote for Bitcoin Mag, but no, if El Zante didn't exist, I'm pretty sure there'd be no Bitcoin law in El Salvador. I mean, maybe there'd be a crypto law, but I feel like the Bitcoin piece very much came from there, and that those people changed the world, which is really crazy. No, it'll be a mix. I mean, look, you've got individual adoption, you've got corporate adoption, and you're going to have more nation state adoption. And again, I think eventually it'll become more top down over time, but it's driven by people. I think that in America, in countries that have a representative system, you will get a little more of this impact of like constituents caring about Bitcoin as like an important electoral issue, which is interesting, because then like what's going to happen is that the people running for office, they're going to need to have a Bitcoin position. And in some areas of the country, it'll become clear that like to win in that district, they have to be not just pro Bitcoin, but like very pro Bitcoin. So
Wyoming, Texas.
Yeah.
Florida.
There's going to be some very interesting, even if you don't believe in the whole, like, like you don't have to weigh in on like your thoughts on the American system, but just the mechanism of incentives involved in having these like congressmen and senators means that eventually like the people's interest in this currency will actually force their hand. So that's going to be very interesting. Obviously, it'll be different in countries that are more like top down, but they'll be forced to do it because their currencies suck. I mean, it's just kind of obvious. I'm working on this, working through this really incredible book right now called Super Imperialism. It's just quite the freaking trip. It was written in 1972 by a guy named Michael Hudson.
Have to open up Audible again and get another one?
Yeah, this one's it is. I don't know if it's on Audible. I think this one's out of print. It's you can get it.
It has to be on Audible.
Yeah, I don't know if this one's on Audible. This is one of those deep cuts.
Get him a Dr. Seuss book next so he can read it.
It's pretty nuts though. It describes like how the dollar became the world reserve currency, and how like the U.S. government kind of just took over the world. It's a crazy story, and I guess what's interesting is that in the book, and I'll read you a quote from the book.
Read to us.
So in the 70s, yeah. So it's a short one, but the idea is that
the Amazon Audible Live right now. What we got going on?
All right, so
Rainbow.
let's see here. The idea is, look. So in the 70s, there were a lot of people who were like, "Wait a second, this is crazy." The U.S. government managed to like rug pull everybody, and they no longer had gold. They had these dollar credits, which could no longer be exchanged for gold. And yet that's what everybody was saving in. It was like the greatest trick we ever pulled, right? And they were sitting there being like, what the hell are we going to do? There was no euro, So at the time in the mid 70s, this guy says, without a euro currency, there is no alternative to the dollar. And without gold or some other form of asset money yet to be accepted, there is no alternative to national currencies and debt money serving international functions for which they've shown themselves to be ill-suited, right? So like at the time, people knew that we were like screwed unless something else could be invented. So it's like you read all this like very left wing, by the way, history of the world, almost Marxist in terms of its distaste for the American kind of hegemony, right? But a lot of it's just so accurate and very deep. And you're sitting there and you're reading and you're like, wow, these people totally like. What's funny is like Bitcoin is so obviously the solution. It's this asset money that has yet to be accepted, right? But at the end of the day, most of these Marxists are going to hate Bitcoin, so it's perfect. It's like they're going to struggle with it anyway. And then he says, obviously, one way to discourage governments from running payments deficits is to oblige them to finance these deficits with some kind of asset they would prefer to keep, yet can afford to part with when necessary. To date, no one has come up with a better solution than that which history has institutionalized over a period of about 2,000 years, gold, right? So you even had these like kind of chartalist people being like, well, look, gold's pretty good internationally because it prevents one government from screwing up everybody else, basically.
I'm gonna have to pause on that. I don't know what chartalist means.
Oh, it's like sort of a term for someone who believes that money is only a creation of the state. It's the opposite
idiots.
of someone who
idiots.
It's the opposite of someone who believes that money it was created in the organic free market, through barter and then through commodity money and through metal and things like that.
Separate than state.
Yeah. So no, it's the whole like David Graeber debt thing. So yes, if you're a chartalist, like Bitcoin's going to make you really angry because it's nobody.
I'm not a chartalist. You're a chartalist.
It's no one's it's no one's liability. Piero Richard always talks about the violent chartalists. It's true. I mean, they just want to redistribute wealth. According to their own whims.
I've got an important question that's been burning up inside of me since you did your Lex Fridman interview.
Yeah, what do you got?
And that is how do you how do you keep yourself from going around the office and then shouting out fake chess moves to Kasparov?
I find that Gary does not. I think it's nice for him to speak to people who don't want to talk about chess because I think his entire life over the last 35 years has been 40 years has been everybody on the street is like, oh, can we talk about chess?
Right, but fake stuff. Like come up with fake moves. Come up with fake chess moves and shout them out as you're walking by his office.
He doesn't suffer any fools. Let's put it that way. Fair enough. He would be like
you're fired.
He'd basically fire you on the spot. So that wouldn't work.
The Ligmatucci move or something.
Exactly.
Both.
Yeah, anytime you try to make a joke, he's heard it before. There's been a million people who've tried to make the same chess joke.
I guarantee you, he's never heard of the Bofa opening or the Ligma swap.
You know what he hasn't heard of is pawn to e4 in Europe.
Oh, shut up!
Shut up, Sean.
Okay. Well, Gary is definitely. Very, very intrigued by Bitcoin. We'll put it that way.
Really? That's cool.
Yes. Well, he's one of the smartest people in the world. He'll figure it out eventually,
Fair enough. A more pressing question, and one that I guess is a little more on point, is, and this is from Mike, who can't be here tonight. He's a little busy.
Okay.
But he was curious about what keeps you up at night, and then the sub question to that is, how can we help ameliorate those fears with memes?
Yeah. What keeps me up at night recently is how little we know about the money system and how really corrupt and brutal it is. And it's just sort of, it's like that. We'll put the orange pill for a second. It's like that red pill moment. Where once you realize it and you step out of it and you start looking at it, you're like, wow, this is super, super, super fucked up. And a lot of that research I was doing on the way that the French, colonized these countries in Africa, financially. And, I saw something the other day where it was the French, the British, all the European countries, right? And they were giving a statue back to Nigeria. And it was kind of okay, I appreciate the gesture, but like the trillions of dollars of raw materials and labor are never going to be returned.
No.
They're like forever encrusted into the legacy of Europe. Like,
enjoy the statue.
Yeah, no, and it's just like, well, guess what? Like, let's see Nigeria front run the Brits on Bitcoin. Like that's like what we need to see. Like, yeah, and exactly.
I completely agree there.
It's the only way to get reparations is to actually front run your colonial, subjugators.
What is your vision on like what's the best way to achieve this? Like I was in the Caribbean like this past summer. Yeah, I've grown up there, and each one of those islands has been colonized like multiple times over their history, and they're all same thing with slavery and as far as goes to the African countries, they're pretty similar. They're all using either the euro or the pound or the US dollar. But how do we make them front run the rest of the world? Because it's such a challenge, because trying to orange pill people there, it's not so much about the currency. It's just they have no clue, or they either feel I don't have any money to save, etc., etc. So what according to you is like the best way to go about this?
Look, I think that, again, this is why I feel weird about like going and talking to governments. Like, I don't think it's the right way. A lot of people come to me and they're like, oh, well, like, should we come up with a plan to like try to push legal tender in a new country? And I'm like, I don't think that's the way Bitcoin works. Like, I think that it's relatively organic. Like, do I think Ukraine has a decent chance of doing it? Yeah. But like, I don't think that it's worth time and effort to push it. I think it'll come when it comes. And I think that for all these countries, the front running that I'm talking about is really going to be at the individual level, right? So a lot of these governments are still like totally subject to kind of Western powers, right? In terms of dictating terms and shit like that, especially in the Caribbean. So they probably won't come out and defy their masters or whatever. So it's going to be individuals. So just the fact that there's millions of Nigerians using Bitcoin is awesome. So
should we start putting memes in like the local newspapers and radio stations?
Yeah,
to just get the individuals go.
Great idea. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's about engaging the public, and the government will be forced to react one way or the other later.
What kind of memes would create the largest reaction?
That's your job, Greg.
Yeah, you're gonna have to get there.
Here.
You should finance Greg to go out on some meme trips, and then he can come up. Once he's got his feet on the ground, he can see.
You hear that, Jack? Finance some meme trips.
But no, but like we can start in North Carolina. Like let's do America first. Like let's you can
I like the Caribbean better.
Well, yeah, but that's for you to do. Like you can go out. Everybody can do their own region, and I just think it's beautiful to see all these millions of people in emerging markets like use Bitcoin at the beginning of a very crazy decade. Where, I mean, I don't think people are remotely prepared for what's going to happen with regard to fiat currency and Bitcoin and the relative values of like when we sit here, we'll come back and do a recap in 2031 here, and it's going to be interesting to look back. So
you're saying you're signing up for a rebroadcast. You're coming back on in 2031.
Yeah, 2031. Yeah.
Don't forget the 2024 halving party right here with the meme.
Right here.
How could I forget? The halving is going to be something else, because there was a.
We will be having a party, and it will be with the Meme Factory.
No
Everyone's
pun intended.
coming.
We're having a party.
It was on when we were interviewing Adam Back, and there's these people asking him about like weird things that Satoshi did, and couldn't have Satoshi just made it so that the issuance was a slope? And it's like, actually, this is way cooler, because like that in 20 years halvings are going to be like this massive global celebration, like just like Christmas on times 100, like all over the world.
And it'll always be with the Meme Factory.
No, it's like at the time it was probably bizarre. Everybody was like, why the fuck is this changing every 4 years? This doesn't make any sense. And you can start to realize now that it's going to become like this massive holiday. It's going to be so awesome.
It's like the Olympics of sound money. every 4 years.
Dude, the Olympics.
Why are we not celebrating
it's
it like a holiday?
it's the Olympics of abundance and prosperity, man. It's
Yeah.
gonna be
Cornucopia.
so awesome. Yeah.
What,
No,
what,
so the
what word
next
did you
one
just
will be-
make up, Pedro?
Jesus Christ, Greg.
I'm into it. It'll be like the Jubilee,
That's
but
racist.
the opposite of the debt Jubilee. It'll be like the commodity, the asset Jubilee.
The meme
It'll be
factory
good.
Jubilee.
Yeah.
I have a very important question by Wenikos.
Yeah.
Is this live?
Yes, it's
Chat,
fun.
the chat doesn't believe this is live.
No, we
Also,
taped
we
this
need to hear-
yesterday.
We also need to hear RD's voice.
Yeah, we do.
No, he's not
Hey
coming up.
guys, this is RT. Hey guys.
I was
Everybody
muted.
look at him.
Don't look at me.
Looking at you.
Do you want me to ask my question?
Go ahead,
Yes.
man.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank God for Alex Gladstein. He is a blessing to the Bitcoin scene, I would say. But for a serious question, if the meme factory did exist, which we know it doesn't, which one of us would you like? Which one of us would you retweet? And which one would you mute?
Okay. I would say that Greg is as a like. Sometimes I'm too embarrassed to retweet what he's
Yeah.
got to offer.
Same.
That's tough. But there's more than 3 of you. So do you want me to not comment on?
That's
tell
right.
me the rules.
Yeah, you're automatically rating us.
Okay, so the one that okay. I think I got to retweet Plan Marcus. He's got the fire often.
He does.
Ooh, you're the first one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Uh,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna
Made my
mute.
day. I
He's
could-
also
I
not
the
gonna-
first
I can
one
go
to
to
like
bed now.
me.
I
I'm
can
not
go
going to
to
mute
bed
any
now.
of you guys. That's ridiculous.
can mute me.
No muting.
I like.
Yeah,
being
I'll mute you. Who asked? If you want me to mute you, I'll mute you because you asked the question. But
Meet somebody who didn't make it tonight.
muting is
Oh yeah.
Abra.
Labra.
muting is of limited use. I mean, you either block somebody or it's just kind of muting is like if you just don't want them to know that. I don't know. It's just lame.
It's half-ass.
Yeah, it's very half-assed. So I wouldn't do that to you guys. I would block you. I would just block you.
I was listening to Stefan Livera's podcast on my commute to home tonight, and somebody, one of the guys on there asked a question about who's most likely to adopt Bitcoin or like to promote Bitcoin or to be Bitcoiners. Is it the right or the left party from a political standpoint? And one of them mentioned that they would love to ask you that question. So I thought I would front run them and ask you, even though I pretty much think that you don't give a shit either way, but
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that first of all, it depends on what kind of party. Like, for example, I think that in some countries, your libertarian, your right-wing party might be more libertarian, in which case more likely to adopt Bitcoin, despite the fact that most libertarians are still not going to make it and they still don't like Bitcoin, like probably by volume.
that was actually the point of Stefan's show today.
Yeah, no. So the Cato thing, it's like unbelievable. But they're coming around. It's just that conservatives are like probably not going to like Bitcoin. So it's mixed bag on that side. Of course, on the left you have the chartalists. But I do think that there's like a subset of people who will realize that they can really stick it to the man by going into Bitcoin and fight back. So I just think it depends. I think in America right now, it's like the Republicans are winning a little bit, but it's so early. It's hard to say. I don't know who will win out in the end.
Neither.
I do think you have like far left and far right people who are both like realizing that they're going to get deplatformed. So it's just a matter of time before before all of them are like realizing. Anyone who's like not totally PC is going to realize the value of this thing because they're going to, one way or another, they're going to get deplatformed. And I think that goes for both sides. So yeah, we'll see.
Alex, I'm curious. and I sent you another DM, and you don't have to read this one, but I sent you the second ad copy in case you were brave enough to read it.
No.
Oh, okay.
This is the first for the Meme Factory podcast.
Uh-oh.
You don't
We're
have
breaking format here.
We're breaking format,
Extra
but
sats for us.
we're coming to the end here. I wanted to see if
This is off script.
I wanted to
Greg.
see. I wanted to see.
Luckily, this is a test stream, so
Oh, man.
Luckily.
This one's too tough for me to
Okay.
read.
Okay.
I like where you're going, but really really brutal.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Good call. Good call.
You all know how bad it is because I won't read it. So.
we're pretty sure we know which one it is. We voted that one out. We said
Yeah, we
weren't gonna-
voted out. We voted out.
That's how you know you're doing your job.
Right.
If I did read it, it would be kind of weak. Let's put it that way. So, but yeah,
All right.
I'm looking for the. You know, we need more memes. As I mentioned to you the other day, we need like the Freedom Go Up one. Still,
I'm actually really curious. You mentioned letting up a balloon, and I don't know if it was pamphlets you were going to drop over North Korea. What did you put on there? Was it like a meme? I mean, you only have so much space to put information on. So
No, it's actually really interesting. So it is sort of meming. So these folks we work with, they would put dollar bills. Actually, they would put basically photographs of like Kim Jong, like the Kim family's palaces and stuff, and they would put because that's really what gets people angry is corruption, right? At the end of the day, a lot of people don't care about democracy, but they care about corruption. So they would put like the absurd house that he lives in. They would put this thing. It was kind of smart. It was like last 3 leaders of my country versus yours kind of thing. And it was like these 3, elected people, and then like just the whole family, of the Kims,
Right.
3 Kims. So they were like little plastic pamphlets that were actually like water, like bags that could hold things. Because in North Korea, there's like no plastic anything. I learned this. It's like amazing. They have no plastic anything. They have no like plastic bags or anything like that. So people would use the little pamphlets to do things, for uses that were, of utility.
right. Smart.
I remember the biggest interesting thing for me was and honestly most stuff gets into North Korea over the border with China. Like the merchant activity there is high, so the balloons are kind of like a smaller way of getting information, and the overwhelming majority comes in in trucks and stuff over China, boats, things like that. But when the movie The Interview came out, if you remember, that was when Sony Pictures got hacked, right, by this like group that claimed to be supported by North Korea. This was like I think Christmas 2014. Or maybe Christmas 2013. I can't remember. Christmas 2014. And basically, what was interesting is I learned that I don't know if any of you actually saw the movie.
Great movie.
But there's a couple really interesting scenes. And our colleagues there who are North Korean who escaped, who now live in South Korea, they're the ones who curate the content which goes in, right? And they loved the interview. And what they would do is they didn't send the whole thing because it would get like a lot, like North Korean people like would get lost in them. The whole like Eminem scene, all that stuff, like too confusing. But they cut it down, and the real scene was like the interview of I guess James Franco, I guess, is like interviewing Kim Jong Un or whatever, and that is just inconceivable to North Korean, like that their god would sit down for an interview. So they love that scene. And what was crazy to me is that the interview got like 4 or 5 times the market price of other movies at the time. Like it was just like super popular. So that was interesting to me. And it suggests that you can definitely meme stuff.
They hate us because they hate us.
I mean, arguably.
They hate us because they hate us.
Why?
Greg's a potato.
You're a potato.
Are we on?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're on. So the one of the other questions from Mike, and I know I want to be respectful of your time here. Got a quick one here, so we can let you go on time and go pick up your do your responsibilities. Is if you were forced to leave the U.S. for any reason by the end of the year, which 3 countries are on your short list and why?
Let's see. Forced to use the. I'll leave aside why I might be forced to leave the U.S. I would have to consider probably an Asian country, a European country, and then probably a Latin American country. I really like Taiwan. I think Taiwan's fucking awesome, and it's so cool that they have freedom in the face of this massive communist party. And it's a tropical island. Like, it's pretty dope. And I like a lot of their traditions and cultures. So Taiwan might be a place I would consider. In Europe, I like Norway a lot. I spent a lot of time there. Norway's cool.
Amsterdam.
But yeah, Amsterdam's nice.
Amsterdam's not a country, Marcus.
Amsterdam's not a country, but I don't know. Europe's
Country
got
within a country.
anything. I spent this summer. I went with my family. We did some traveling around Europe. Like,
The Vatican.
honestly, any of it's pretty great. But Spain is nice. I like Spain.
Canary Islands.
I don't know if I'd want to live in the Canary Islands.
Oh.
But I obviously would have to consider moving down to El Salvador. I mean, obviously. But I think the main thing is I want to stay here. So hopefully I don't have to leave. That would be very unfortunate. I like where I live.
Thank you, Alex. I know we're at a hard limit for you. So if there's anything you want to leave us with this evening, where people can find you, anything, any actionable items you can leave for our audience, that'd be fantastic.
Meme requests, anything.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I can be found on Twitter with my last name. You can check out the work of HRF at hrf.org. Always thinking about the Trojan horse memes and the NGU, FGU memes. So looking forward to seeing more of those in the future. People seem to really enjoy that in the Lex Friedman interview. So that was cool to see that. It's crazy that like we taped that in April. So like, it's crazy to think about what's happened since April. Like the whole El Salvador thing, nation state adoption, the fall of Afghanistan to the Taliban, and then the whole China kicking out mining. Like that, it's a lot of stuff happening, which is interesting because I feel like we covered a lot of it in the interview.
You did. I got the feeling that stuff had already happened when you had.
It was taped in freaking April. It was taped actually the last time Bitcoin was at 62K or 61K or whatever. And you know what? I'm glad he waited until it came back to 62K to release. So it's been good. But yeah, I think that it's cool because it's like one of the last pre-nation state era Bitcoin interviews. Let's put it that way. It was that time is over now. Now we're living in the new age. But I appreciate you guys having me on, and keep up the good work memeing our new world into existence.
Thanks for your time, Alex. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
100%, guys.
Yeah, it was
A lot
great.
of fun. Take care,
Thanks,
guys.
Alex.
Bye.